Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full IT Welcome to Derry episode 6 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, WTF moments, super messed up as you would expect, so we'll break it all down. We finally started to learn more about what happened with Bob Gray in the past and his daughter, Periwinkle, who is Ingrid in the present. This is probably one of the most important things the show has done, is actually dig deeper into the actual lore of Pennywise the Clown and why the IT entity chose to become the clown in the first place if it's a being made of light and could theoretically turn itself into anything that it wants. And over the course of these episodes, Mrs. Kersh in the Periwinkle character has started to become the most interesting characters on the show next to Pennywise. The episode title was In the Name of the Father, which is a reference to Ingrid's father, Bob Gray, because it's a big deep dive into the 1930s to explain what happened to her and what's really going on with her in present day and how she's helping Pennywise inadvertently because she thinks that it's actually her father just come back to life. Bob Gray is the original Pennywise the Dancing Clown from 1908. At a certain point, we will see why the IT entity chose to take his form and the event that she references like a very terrible thing that happened, which is probably his original death. That will probably be the moment where the IT entity just permanently starts taking his form. During that behind the scenes for the episode 2, Madeline Stowe did her interviews for the episode in front of Bob Gray's Pennywise the Clown cart from 1908. In present day, this is where its lair is, the original cart from 1908. So if she ever does go down into the cistern, she can actually see the original cart that her father owned that she lived in. We will see if that eventually happens. We know that Mrs. Kersh is referenced during the events of the IT movies, but it's a little bit different because it's all Pennywise's trick on Beverly. It's not actual Mrs. Kersh there talking to her. So there's still a couple questions about what happens to her in the future of Derry. You could also look at the title of the episode, In the Name of the Father, as reference to the other fathers in the episode, like Hanlon dealing with almost having just killed his son Will when he thought that it was Pennywise, and what happens to Ronnie's father, Hank Grogan, as his storyline leads to the Black Spot event. Pretty much just pending doom for all the characters on the show. The opening scene starts in black and white at Juniper Hill in 1935. This is during the 1930s Pennywise cycle, and we meet a younger version of Ingrid, older technically from the 1908 period. She's in her 30s during this period. Later she says that she started working here after she chose to stay in Derry after the circus left town. We see her befriend Mabel and try to help her the same way that she befriended Lily in the 1960s, but the way they explain this is that this is the first time that she actually sees Pennywise the Clown and thinks that it's her father. She hasn't seen him since 1908. So at least at the beginning of the episode, when she takes Mabel down to the basement and she says, "Don't be afraid," because she thinks that it's her father, she's not purposefully trying to feed Mabel to Pennywise, thinking that it will help bring her father back yet. That doesn't happen till later after we see the rest of the 1930s flashbacks. Don't worry, we'll get to that in a second. They were actually pretty good about explaining the whole timeline of how Ingrid slowly goes Pennywise pilled, like she is fully Pennywise pilled by the end of the episode. I know there'll be a lot of questions about the red balloon too, because they did it in black and white. So I think the reason why they did this is one, because they wanted to go for a neo-noir vibe, and that genre started during the 1930s. A lot of black and white movies like this, like they wanted to be period specific to 1930s movies on a design level. Make a lot of actual film history into the actual episode, but also in context of the episode, this is Ingrid remembering things from her own history, which is why you can see both black and white and color at the same time, because it's happening inside a memory.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Because we see the balloon, we know that it's the IT entity in Pennywise form. It's not her actual father, like her father is long since dead, it sounds like. This is also the reason why she's not afraid of it when it shows up and grabs the balloon and steps in and starts messing with Mabel, like, no, this is my father. One of the most interesting parts of this scene here too is where she says Papa to the IT entity, and notice how it stops dead in its tracks, like, what? What did you just call me? Almost like she confused it for just a hot second until it realizes that it's the little girl who was Periwinkle the Clown, and it remembers everything from the 1908 cycle, because remember, he's a cosmic entity, so theoretically he would have perfect memory. This is why right after this, he starts laughing maniacally like, oh, you're that little girl from the guy whose form that I am now taking, and this is going to be hilarious. I'm going to use you as my little helper monkey going forward for years and years and years through all my different cycles. You're going to help me during the rest of this 1930s cycle, door dashing a bunch of kids to me. Then you'll help me again in another 27 years and door dash a bunch of stuff to me then. basically turning her into a 1930s and now 1960s version of Henry Bowers, basically doing the same thing that he does with Henry Bowers during the It movies. Maybe we can blame this on her having very poor eyesight. Somebody get her some new eyeglasses. Speaking of which, thank you to Warby Parker for sponsoring this video. Normally, I don't wear my glasses when I film myself for videos. I've done it a couple times in the last couple of years, a little more recently since I started putting myself on camera more and more. I didn't actually have to start wearing them till a couple years ago, and I never quite gotten used to them. It's a huge hassle every time I need to update my prescription through my eye doctor. Feels I have to pay a small mortgage just to get a new pair and forget about getting prescription sunglasses. Then I learned about Warby Parker. I'd heard about them in the past from my friends who'd been wearing glasses their whole lives, and learned how much I'd been getting ripped off and how easy it is to get quality frames without even having to leave my house. They've got this survey on their website. You fill it in with your preferences, or they can offer suggestions on different styles. They even have an app that lets you try on frames virtually. If you've got vision insurance, they let you use those towards new pairs. Usually it works out to about half the cost of going through my eye doctor, so I do save a lot of money, and I do not have to leave my house. They even have a program where they donate a pair of glasses to someone in need for every pair that someone buys, so just by going through them and saving yourself a ton of money, you can also help somebody else. I did ask them to send me a pair of Clark Kent Hypno glasses, but they said they're still working on that one. What I'll do is I'll put a QR code here on screen or down in the description below. You can use that to go through their website and save yourself a ton of money. They cut to the intro scene, and even though the actual intro itself is the exact same as all the previous episodes, one thing that does change is the music in the background. You've noticed that ever since they debuted the intro, each episode, there's this very disconcerting music that rises louder and louder in the background episode to episode. So in the next two episodes, you just hear this crazy, creepy music being louder and louder until it builds to a crescendo in absolute chaos in the finale. I think that's the idea. Then they pick up in present day with Will and his father arguing about Pennywise and what happened in the sewers and Polly's death, with his father trying to push it all onto him, not himself. The whole reason why it could see inside his head, inside Hanlon's head, is because he's a very powerful telepath. He has telekinesis to very powerful cosmic entity. Gets very abusive with his son. This is also Pennywise just influencing people, just making things in general for everybody worse. Everybody just gets worse on all kinds of levels. Even though they're outside the city limits of Derry, this will become a big thing. Pennywise still has low-level influence. It's just that he's not as powerful outside of the boundaries of Derry. As the tribe said in the previous episode, Pennywise wants to build towards an augury moment, a big cycle-ending WTF event where a bunch of people die. So that's why the vibe in town just gets worse and worse and worse, and everybody's running around with guns, drinking booze in the broad daylight. Just really terrible combination. Guns and booze at the same time all day long. No wonder everybody's going to try and kill each other pretty soon. When Will gets upset with his father saying that he doesn't want to be afraid of Pennywise, that's a 100% correct move. Do not be afraid. That's his big weapon against everyone, to make them more afraid. This whole Will storyline, like the subplot for Will's character, also feels like it will be why Pennywise comes after him in the future and is behind the circumstances of his death, because during the It movies, Mike thinks that his father Will died as a drug addict, but they'll probably eventually reveal that Pennywise was behind that, even though it happens between cycles. So another big idea is that Pennywise can still influence things at a certain level, even between cycles. Just because you're in the middle of a cycle doesn't mean you're 100% safe from him. Willow's also 100% correct when he says Pennywise has gotten to Leroy's head. Even though he doesn't have an amygdala and his body doesn't produce an actual chemical fear response, there are still things that he's afraid of. They actually said this in the behind the scenes, like the Muschietti said, oh, he's still definitely afraid. There's a montage of missing children posters, including more wanted posters for Hank Grogan. You see the town running around with guns everywhere, like I said, a bunch of booze, talking about looking for him. Lily then tells the other kids about the dragon glass dagger. We'll call it the dragon glass dagger because it kind of looks like those from Game of Thrones. It is meant to be a piece of the meteorite that brought the It entity to Earth millions of years ago. Most of you probably saw how she went full Gollum, One Ring of Power, when Will tries to touch it. Like, this is full Lord of the Rings. Do not touch my precious. Do not try to take it away from me.
My precious.
Precious?
It makes her more agitated, quicker to anger. She lashes out at them, right out of Lord of the Rings, like Bilbo with the ring, Gollum with the ring. Do not touch my precious. When the Groot starts to tear itself apart, Rich correctly clocks this is all part of Pennywise's doing, trying to turn them against each other, and he's doing it to the entire town now. This is something that Pennywise has done every single cycle. One of the other big callbacks is because we do have flashbacks to the 1930s cycle to explain Ingrid's backstory as Periwinkle the Clown and her relationship with the It entity is during the 1930s. The culminating event, the augury of that cycle, was the Bradley Gang massacre in the middle of town that we see during the intros. Supposedly, the season 2 of the show is supposed to spend most of its time during the 1930s cycle. So we'll probably see this version of Ingrid become a much bigger character during that as well too. See her running around town as Periwinkle the Clown feeding little kids to Pennywise. Hallorann returns to the black spot saying that they're going to have a party. The reason he says he needs booze so badly is because it dulls the shine. You cannot turn off the shining ability completely, but you can dull it. This is why he starts hallucinating water in broad daylight. He learns that Charlotte hid Hank Grogan in the back, explaining why the Legion of White Decency tries to show up at the end of the episode to burn him down, and it's all part of Pennywise's grand plan with his next augury, and we also learn that Ingrid is the reason why the Legion of White Decency learns that Hank is there. She is the anonymous tipster at the end of the episode who called the police and said that Hank Grogan is at the black spot. All because she thinks that this augury will help bring her father back, who is the It entity she doesn't realize yet because she's fully Pennywise pilled. Will and Ronnie have a moment. Ronnie is named after one of It's victims, but it's during a different time period in the books, so it's possible that the Muschiettis have changed her storyline and she does wind up marrying Will and becoming Mike's mother. Like, it could happen. But when Hallorann tells Charlotte to leave him out of this mess with Hank Grogan, I think that's a reference to the Shining story in Dr. Sleep. They have to explain why Hallorann survives the Black Spot event because of plot armor. We know that he shows up later during the events of the Overlook in the Shining storyline. Leave me out of this because I need to survive to a storyline later in the timeline. We also see him inside the Black Spot at the end of the episode when the Legion of White Decency rolls up, so they'll also have to explain how he makes it out of there before they burn it down. There are a couple people we know have to survive for plot reasons. Marge and Rich have a bit of a moment, probably setting up more tragic twists. This whole episode felt like Marge falling in love with Rich. We knew that Rich was already in love with Marge because he has the secret love note to her inside his shoe. When he says he was in Weeblos, I was also a Weeblo in real life. It's short for We'll Be Loyal Scouts, and it's part of the Boy Scouts program for younger kids. So if you were also in the Boy Scouts at some point or you were a Weeblo at some point, let me know in the comments. There have been a lot of theories about Rich and Marge and the idea that Marge will wind up being Richie's mother from the It movies, and she names her son Richie in honor of Rich, who she was in love with and potentially sacrificed himself to save her. It just feels like they're building towards a moment where if she does fall in love with him, which he seems like she has by the end of the episode, and something happens to him, he loses his shoe, she finds it, then finds the love note in the shoe, and then that winds up leading to her eventually naming her son Richie. You're named after a boy that I love and who sacrificed himself to save my life. It just feels like all the good stuff that happens with them building their relationship in this episode is just going to build towards more tragic things in the future. One of the big rules of thumb in stories like this, horror stories, is that anytime any character experiences joy, usually they pull the rug out from under their feet. You could also look at his airplane then falling directly into the storm drain as a reference to Pennywise and this coming to pass eventually. Also, Georgie's boat landing in the storm drain too. Like, yeah, something good might be happening to you here, but Pennywise is going to do something about that pretty soon.
Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
I don't think you guys walk away from this.
You just make sure people know what happened here today.
Hanlon then questions Hallorann about Pennywise and what just happened. They get more orders from Shaw to continue going after the pillars because Pennywise opened his psychic box. He's also unable to control the shine, and that's why he's seeing all these dead people walking around everywhere. He sees a dead person on the base and says that that person probably met their maker here. Something bad happened to him in the past. He starts to explain the whole shining ability to Hanlon, how it works, his family history with his grandmother. The story about the box is also part of the Dr. Sleep movie. If you didn't read that story, you didn't watch the movie, he goes into that about the psychic box and how his grandmother taught him the trick. Basically locking up everything that he was afraid of, all the dead spirits, all the evil entities in a box so they couldn't bother him ever again until, he says, Pennywise opened the box and boom, it's like an open sore now. He can't control his shining ability, so he's seeing everything that he doesn't want to see. Hanlon then gets the very bad idea to try and use his shining ability to ask the dead spirits how to find the pillars because the dead know things that the living should not know. The irony here is when he says, just do it this one time, help the military, then you can shove it all away, put it back in that box, lock it up again, is that we have all seen the Shining movie, we've seen Dr. Sleep, so we know that that does not happen. This will only end badly for Hallorann. Also going to end badly for all the other characters on the show too, but for different reasons. Hallorann also being so dead set against helping the military here might become part of the reason why he ultimately leaves the military and goes to work at the Overlook during the Shining story. When Charlotte tells Leroy that she put Hank Grogan in the black spot and she plans on leaving town with Will soon, we know that that's not going to happen because Leroy stays in town through the events of the It movies to run the slaughterhouse and raise his grandson Mike, and Will continue to live there, eventually begetting Mike, and eventually meet his end as well. Lily then has more flashbacks to her encounter with Pennywise in the middle of the school day, causing her to see the vision of Pickle Father again. She brings out the dagger, starts freaking out more and more. Will then, predictably, tells the other kids about Hank Grogan at the black spot, like the dead secret that nobody else should know right now because it's so dangerous, everybody finds out about. If you ever want a secret to get out, just tell a little kid. They'll tell literally anybody that will listen to them. Mostly the reason for the kids being around for this Hank Grogan storyline to put them in the black spot is for plot reasons, like they want them to feel like they're in jeopardy, trapped when the Legion of White Decency shows up. So this is mostly just plot reasons. Like, we need a reason for all these little kids to be hanging out in this gin joint. We also find out that both Rich and Marge are hearing Pennywise in the pipes at their houses, which is a common thing. It happened to Lily already, Beverly during the It movies later in the timeline, and also the little girl back during the 1930s. So it's almost like Pennywise finds a trick that he likes and then just never uses a different one, like just using the same old tricks every single cycle. Loved a lot of the comedy of their scenes too, like all the Rich and Marge stuff was great in this episode, him trying to explain his pea jar to her. She stands up to the patty cakes finally, Will takes them to the black spot, and then they continue to fall in love. Rich is already in love with her, but she starts to fall more in love with Rich. When Lily goes to Ingrid's again, the creepy smiling neighbor does feel like he's under the influence of Pennywise, like his presence is stronger around Ingrid's house. She eventually finds the photo album and starts seeing pictures from Ingrid's childhood going backwards in time, starting the 1950s with her husband the butcher, the 1930s, picture confirming that she is the woman that we saw at the beginning of the episode, and from her wedding during her 30s here. Then when she sees the pictures from 1908, she sees her father, Bob Gray, and because Lily has seen Pennywise in his clown form, she recognizes that he looks the exact same. She starts making the connection. Oh my God, the clown that I just encountered is in your books, and you're hugging him. What is going on? What is your connection to him? There have been a lot of theories about Ingrid in present day and just what's going on with her in general, but I think that it's meant to be a regular living version of the character who's just obsessed with Pennywise, thinking that it's her father. She doesn't have any actual special powers. Like Pennywise hasn't gifted her any special abilities or anything like that. But you do notice the way she rises in frame in the background is very Pennywise-like. They just really want to draw the parallel between her, Periwinkle the Clown, and Pennywise. And the way the show is explaining her backstory is that Ingrid has spent this whole time since 1908 cycle, the 1930 cycle in the present day, thinking that the It entity in the form of Pennywise the Clown is really just her father come back to life. So she's confusing Pennywise with her father, and the It entity is just taking advantage of this. So ever since the 1930s, he's been gaslighting her to get her to help him. This is why we say that Ingrid is fully Pennywise-pilled. She does not realize that she's helping an evil cosmic entity. She thinks that she's helping her father. Lily then sees the Periwinkle the Clown costume, connects the dots, confirming the theory that the clown in Will's photo that they took a picture of in the one that he saw in his telescope was actually Ingrid in her Periwinkle outfit, and she followed them that night to the graveside, thinking that she would see her father. There are a couple of details from her backstory. She doesn't fully explain a couple events that they're saving for future episodes, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what happened. She says her father was taken from her. It sounds like he was either committed to Juniper Hill or killed by the It entity that then started taking his form. The carnival then moved on in 1908, but she stayed in Derry, drawn to the It entity, and eventually started working at Juniper Hill when she got older. We get another black and white flashback to explain the rest of what happened with that little girl that she took to the basement. She hears Mabel mention Pennywise, thinking that it's her father, and this is meant to be the first time that she would theoretically have seen him since 1908, since she saw him die. This is why she becomes so obsessed, and it sounds like she hasn't seen him at all until this episode in the flashbacks. There is a brief moment where Ingrid does try to help Mabel escape from the It entity, not realizing what's going on with her father. Like, it looks like her father, but it's trying to kill her, so she's trying to get away. Pennywise consumes her. Crunching sounds, gets kind of gross. You also notice the blood is in color as well, too, while everything else is still black and white. Something about the color red and the It entity. Then it takes her father's form without the makeup, the Bob Gray form, using the circus music to mess with her head and to set up the idea that she will continue trying to help it. As he says, "Let me in and everything will be fine." What he's referencing is "let me into your mind." So I think the idea is that the It entity has basically just been parked in her mind this whole time, gaslighting her, just getting her to help it with its food. So essentially, Ingrid, Periwinkle, is now an acolyte of Pennywise the It entity without realizing it. If you really think about it, it's a little bit like Henry during the context of the It movies, too, the way that It uses Henry as its helper. When she talks about feeling whole again for the first time since that awful day, I think she's referencing the events of Bob Gray, her father's death, and we'll just see that in one of the future episodes. There's another time jump during the 1930s cycle later after this, with Pennywise continuing to yoink more children, like you see the balloon go past Juniper Hill. What she thinks is a shadow stealing her father away each time is actually just the It entity having to go back into hibernation because he needs to consume more food before he comes out again. When she says her goal ever since then has been to try and free what she thinks is her father, and what she means when she says when she did anything she had to do to try and see him again, is basically DoorDash more kids to the It entity where he would surface and she would see him again. Like, oh yay, my father's back, but he's back to consume this next child. While this is going on, Lily is realizing the betrayal, what's actually going on. Like, oh, you've actually been trying to feed all my friends to Pennywise the Dancing Clown.
And my friends?
You also notice that Ingrid confirms this. She says, oh, I would never let anything happen to you. But when she asks about her friend, she's like, well, you know, I gotta do what I gotta do. Basically meaning that all her friends, pretty much everybody else in town, are marked, which is also a tip-off at the end of the episode. She's the anonymous tipster who tells the police where to find Hank Grogan at the Black Spot. All because she thinks that it will lead to another event that will cause Pennywise, her father, who she thinks is her father, to come back out in public. You also notice that she says her dream is for it to see her as Periwinkle again, so the idea is that we'll probably see her running around in her Periwinkle outfit in future episodes. This is probably why we see her putting it on at the end of the episode. When she says no one who dies here ever really dies in Derry, it's a reference to both The Shining, because Hallorann is seeing dead people all over the place literally, but it's also Pennywise's ability to manifest dead people, which the kids have also now seen. There are a couple nice moments before things go real wrong at the Black Spot, with like the kids having a fun time, Marge and Rich getting super licked up on Air Force Coke. I really love Air Force Coke. Will talks about his favorite movie, War of the Worlds, with Hank, because remember, Hank ran the movie theater. Then we find out that the mayor fired the police chief, who tips them off the Legion of White Decency, setting off the first part of the augury for the 1960s period. Obviously, it's going to get much worse around town in the next couple of episodes, too. One of the other reasons why we also see Hallorann return to the Black Spot at the very end of the episode, like exactly the wrong time to show up at the Black Spot, is because all the noise from the people also helps drown out the Shining ability a little bit. Right before the Legion shows up, Will also breaks the rules of a horror story, saying that nothing bad is going to happen to them here, meaning that something really bad is about to happen. When the Legion of White Decency rolls up, you also notice they're all wearing masks that make them look more like clowns, demons, like Pennywise vibes, because he's influencing all this, while we see Ingrid putting her Periwinkle the Clown outfit on. Like, the games have now begun on a new level. Things are going to get real wild in the last 2 episodes. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and if there's any Easter eggs or references that you spotted that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. My episode 7 trailer video will post next, and my full episode 7 video will post next week after they release it. The other big reminder is that CCXP is also happening this week. There'll be a bunch of big trailers. I'll try to do videos for everything that they do wind up releasing. So be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss everything. Click here for my episode 7 video, and click here for all my Welcome to Derry episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.